Okay, now let's talk about stage two. Stage two is financing. So you asked the magic question. We determined you're going to make a movie for $1 million. Where are you going to get the money? Great question. It's probably the most challenging question of all indie filmmakers ask. Then the second question is, where am I going to sell the movie? But the first one is, where do I get the money? All right. So financing, there are various things you can do to finance the movie. But when you're doing an independent feature film, like you're an indie filmmaker, you're not doing it with a studio or anything like that, then the primary source of financing is private investment. All right. It is generally comes from what I call high net worth individuals, people who have a lot of money, who would be willing to support you in the making the film and hopefully believe in your vision and are going to invest in you because they want to get a return on their investment. They also, it's kind of cool to be involved with the feature film. Like, you do real estate, right? So real estate can be very good investment, buying a property or whatever, very predictable, pretty good, but it's not as sexy as a film.
Yeah.
Making a film is
not as exciting.
It's not as exciting.
Yeah.
All right. So people like the idea of the film business, but real estate has a much better history of generating a return on investment, and films don't. So films have the reputation of being a super risky, high risk investment. And the reason they have that reputation is because it's true. It is super high risk. And that's because most indie films fail. They do not generate a profit. Sometimes they usually don't even return the investment. They return a fraction of it. So a lot of people lose a lot of money in films. And that's because they go about it the wrong way. So I'm going to teach you a couple of tricks to ensure that you don't go about it the wrong way. But, like any other thing, it's a business, there's risk. All right. So the reason that you have to go with high net worth individuals is because the risk is so high. So otherwise known as angel investors. So an angel investor is somebody who has enough money that they can roll the dice and take a chance on investing in, say, a high risk investment, where if they lose the money, it's not going to change their lifestyle. All right. They have enough money where let me take a shot with this, but it's not going to change. If I lose it all, it's not going to change anything in my life. Mm-hmm. That's the kind of investors you want to have, including your family and your friends. All right. If you're going to take money from your family and friends, make sure that you take only the amount that is not going to change anything if they lose it. You don't want to put anybody in sort of a financial predicament because there's a good chance they are going to lose it. All right. You don't want them to, and you're going to do everything to ensure that, but it's a very good chance that they will. So you got to say to them up front, guys, this is super risky and good chance you lose it all, but here's the reasons why I don't think you're going to lose it, and I'll tell you in a second. All right. All right. So that's the number one source of financing is private investment. All right. And how do you get that? You have to have the ability to network with people. So you have to be able to find high net worth individuals and get to them to be able to pitch them. And if you might have it yourself, or if not, maybe your parents have it, or some friends or whatever who can connect you with people at that category. That's how you pretty well get it. All right. It's hard to cold call these people. They don't want to hear people say, oh, I'll go to my doctors and lawyers and dentists and stuff like that because they have money. If you know them, sure. But you can't cold call them. You can't walk into a doctor's office and say, hey, my name's Michael and I want to make a film. And do you want to? It's like,
so there isn't like a group of people. There isn't like a group of people that I could go to and ask.
There's some organizations that do this, that claim to do it. But the reason you're probably not going to be like, there's this website called Slated, for instance. All right. It's some people call it a crowdfunding site, but what it is, it's a network of potential film investors who would look at your project and say, hey, this is worthy of investing in. But realistically, because it's your first feature and you don't have a track record, they're not going to take a risk with you.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That would be the only reason. I mean, you're a nice guy and hopefully you got talent and whatever, but it's your first time around, so they're not going to take a risk. They might take a risk with me because I've been down this road 7 times. So, I might have more credibility. But the truth is, with you, you're going to have to find people who like you, who trust you and share your vision. All right. And we will get to that on the pitch in a second. All right. I just want to, okay. So I'm going to say that that's going to represent at least half, if not more than this. You're going to need $500,000 to $700,000 of private investment. That's where it's going to come from, like from private investors.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now there are grants out there. So the second form is grants. You could try, lots of institutions, give grants, and foundations give grants for filmmaking because they want to support the arts. Chances are they're not going to give you a grant for a sports narrative film. They're primarily giving grants for documentaries that have strong messages about bettering the world and, saving a cause or doing something like that. But there are grants, so you can find them. I can give you a list of grants and, you can check. There's thousands of places that give grants. It's just, it takes a long time to do the applications. There's a long line in the door, and realistically, they're not looking for sports dramas.
Okay.
All right. Unless you find some niche thing that I don't know about. Maybe there's sports drama organization giving a grant. I doubt it. Okay. Okay. So forget that. All right. Now, the next thing is there are financial incentives available from about 28 states in the United States. And they come in the form usually of what we call a tax credit or a rebate. So let's say, like I shot one of my movies in the state of Oklahoma. So the state of Oklahoma wants to incentivize independent filmmakers like me to come to their state to shoot my film there. And the reason they want to do that is because they want me to spend my $1 million in production in their state, because it's good for their local economy and it creates jobs for their local filmmakers.
Okay.
So states do this because they want to entice filmmakers to employ their filmmakers and spend, on catering and hotels and vehicles and all the stuff that is involved in a shoot. So the states get behind this and they say, hey, filmmakers, if you come to our state and you spend $1 million, then we will give you a tax credit or a tax rebate, or just a rebate in general, and we'll get into that in a second, of say 30% of what you spend. And it's a little more complicated than that. You have to have these, what we call qualified expenditures. So you have to spend it on certain things that they want it spent on. It's got to be spent in the local economy. And so anyways, they say, we're going to give you, say, let's say when all is said and done, it's actually going to work out to say 20%. They say 30% is our program, but some of it won't qualify. Some of it will get diluted, blah, blah, blah. So perhaps you're going to get 20% of your budget will be covered by the state financial incentive program.
Okay.
So that's $200,000 of your $1 million if you do it properly and you shoot in a state that offers that type of thing.
But they give it to you at the end?
Good question.
Okay.
That's exactly right. They give it to you after the fact.
Okay.
Okay, so you can include it in your financing, but not in your, you have to cash flow it properly, meaning you're going to need the cash up front because you need $1 million to make your movie.
Right.
And after you shoot it, they're going to give it back to you, say 6 months after you finish your movie. But you need that money to make your movie. So a lot of people include this in their financing structures. I don't. I include it in my revenue structure. So I try to finance the whole movie and I don't include that. And then the $200,000 I include as revenue coming back afterwards.
Okay.
But I do that only because of experience and based on cash flow. So a lot of filmmakers will say, as part of my financing plan, I'm going to get a $200,000 tax credit. But then they're going to have to borrow money or something because they need the cash, that $200,000 to actually make the movie. Then they're going to get it back afterwards.
Okay.
So depending on how you like to do your accounting, it's the same $200,000.
Okay.
All right. Then there are other ways you can get other money. So there's this thing called crowdfunding. Now, I don't know if you've heard of crowdfunding, but there's these sites called like Indiegogo and Kickstarter, and in the film business, Seed and Spark. And these are crowdfunding websites where you basically create this campaign, you talk about your movie, you do a video, and you ask the public to donate to helping you make your movie.
Okay.
So you might say to the public, hey, I need $150,000 from you. Here's the movie I'm making. Here's what it's all about. Here's who I am. Here's the team I'm going to use. And they give them 60 days and hopefully they respond. You have to do a lot of networking to get people in social media outreach, and hopefully people respond and are willing to. It's a donation. They basically donate, and they give you. This is what we call reward crowdfunding. Those are the sites that are rewards. So basically, they donate that money, and you can give them a reward like maybe a credit in your movie, or a digital copy of the movie when it's finished, or for somebody who's a big donator, maybe an executive producer credit, something like that. And these sites are very robust. They're well set up, lots and lots of activity on them, not only movies, but lots of other inventions, businesses, and all this kind of stuff. So that's crowdfunding. That's
Okay.
reward crowdfunding.
Is that very common?
It's very common usually for lower budget films, not $1 million films. But that's why I'm saying don't try to get $1 million off a crowdfunding
Okay.
campaign. If you want to try to get $50,000 or $100,000, very common to do that.
Okay.
All right. Now, there's other crowdfunding sites, platforms that are called equity crowdfunding platforms. And there are a few for the movie business, like Movie Funder. And they are sites where instead of giving, say, a reward to somebody, like in the Kickstarter reward platform, you would say, give me $100 and I'll send you, a digital copy of the movie, right?
Okay.
This one, you say, give me $1,000 and I'll give you 0.01% of my company. They're actually getting equity in your company.
Oh.
So you're actually selling off you're going to create a company probably to make this movie, and you're going to sell off part of your equity of that company. So you might sell off, say, 50% of the equity of your company in exchange for, say, $500,000 in funding, which mean your company, you
At the chance of having them have a return on it?
well, everybody wants a return. We're going to talk about that afterwards,
Yeah.
okay? I'm just telling you where the funding sources are.
Okay.
So that's what you want. You might want to do an equity crowdfunding thing. Also very extensive to do it, lots of work, but if you got the time and interest and you think your project's big enough and you can do a good one, you'll see. I'll show you some campaigns afterwards and you'll say, this looks good, this doesn't look good, or whatever. It's an art in itself just to set up these campaigns.
Okay. Do you have someone that sets that up? Or you have to do that yourself?
You can hire somebody for anything. Just depends how much money you want to spend to do, to set this stuff up.
Okay.
All right. So, and you include it as part of your budget if you pay somebody else or you do it yourself. Depends how much time you have, how much interest, and maybe you want people who do it well. I mean, all of these require a video, so you probably want somebody who knows how to shoot and edit a video to at least do that component for you.
You mean like a trailer or?
No, these are promo videos. So you're doing crowdfunding. This is like basically you talking to the potential group of investors, whether they're reward investors or equity investors, saying, hey, I'm Mike, I'm making a movie. Here's what the movie's about. Here's what I'm going to use the money that you're going to either donate or invest. And here's why we should do it. And here's how much money we're going to make as a result of it.
Okay.
Okay. And we'll get into the whole how much money we're going to make. That's a big section of this discussion. So, okay. So then the next way to get some funding, which is kind of not realistic anymore, it used to be, is what we call a minimum guarantee from a distributor. So after your film gets finished, you're going to want to get it distributed, but you don't have to wait. You do now mostly, but it used to be a decade or two ago. You could take your concept to a distributor and say to them, here's the movie that I'm making, and it's going to be really good, and it's going to be marketable, blah, blah, blah. Would you like to invest in it beforehand? You're not really investing. Would you like to secure the rights, the distribution rights to this movie before I make the movie, and give me a certain amount of money to secure those rights? And you're securing those rights against sort of the royalties that you would pay me. So when you sell the movie, let's say you end up selling it for $5 million and you take $1.5 million and you give me $3.5 million. Give me, say, $500,000 of it up front today. And then when you generate that other money, you'll just recoup it against that. So give it to me in advance. And that's called a minimum guarantee or an advance.
Okay.
And that doesn't really exist anymore for indie filmmakers. People talk about it, but it's super rare to see it. So don't depend on it. I mean, you can ask. You
So
can
that 500,000 would come out of my pocket when I want to distribute it.
that you'd have to. Well, you've taken their money. So let's say they owe you $3.5 million at that point. They're only going to pay you $3 million because they already paid you the $500,000. All right, they
Okay.
paid it in advance. So
So in a sense, then I would be using my own money to fund the film.
no, they'll give you the cash. They'll give you the 500 up front, but don't count on it. Okay, I just mentioned it.
But in a sense, it would be mine if I'm getting it up front.
Well, they're investing. Yeah, they're giving you the money to make the movie. You know that. Yeah, they're saying use this money to make the movie to help you finance the movie, and then when we earn that amount of money and we're going to pay you that amount, we've already given it to you.
Oh,
And so we're going to offset that because we already gave you that amount. So I said 3.5. Let's say we generated all this money and we owe you $1 million, right? Because we distributed your movie and we generated and we earned you $1 million, but we already gave you $500,000. So so we're going to offset that. We're only going to give you another $500,000.
Okay.
That's what that is. Do not count on that.
Okay.
Okay. Minimum guarantees.
It doesn't happen much anymore?
Almost never.
Okay.
Very, very rarely.
But before it was a popular thing?
Very. Yeah, very.
How long ago were we talking?
A decade ago, or certainly 20 years ago.
Why has that changed?
There's so much more product. The selling prices are lower and the distributors just don't want to take any risk. Various other reasons. Listen, broadcasters used to give minimum guarantees and maybe streaming platforms would do it, but they don't need it. There's so much product out there and a lot of them are making it themselves that they don't need to take that financial risk. They'd rather say, you know what, go make your movie and bring it to us. And when we like it, we'll make a deal afterwards. We don't want to get involved ahead of time.
Okay.
And, it used to be, well, not enough product was being made, so they need to commit to it. But there's so much product being made now, they don't really have to take that risk anymore.
Okay.
That may change, could change. I doubt it. I don't depend on it. I try for it every once in a while. I'll have that discussion, but I do not rely on it.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, you could borrow money. So this is something I strongly, strongly recommend you don't do. Don't put expenses on your credit card. Okay. Don't go into debt. Sometimes you have to, like, let's say you got $1 million budget and you've got, say, $950,000 secured. You just need that extra $50,000. So it's very tempting to just put it on your credit card if you have that, or borrow it, or do some type of debt vehicle that gets you that extra money. And it's just not a great idea to do that if you can avoid it. But if you have to, you have to.
Okay.
All right. So the main source, private equity, private investment. All right. High net worth individuals who are basically taking a chance. All right. Crowdfunding, whether it be equity or reward, tax credits, financial incentives from government agencies, usually, potentially a grant. And that's sort of the package. That's how you're going to get. And of course, your own money. A lot of investors want to see that you put some money in because they want you to have skin in the game. They want you to take some financial risk, as they do in any investment.